Hello friends, welcome to welcome back to Fiona's universe. I've filmed that intro 3 times now, so I'm over it. I hope the mic sounds okay. That's what I'm gonna preface the video by saying, because I did several mic checks and it sounded okay, but like I can't really tell if it's doing anything or if I'm too close or anything like that. But today's video is gonna be more of a podcasty style thing. I don't actually post podcasts anywhere, but I'm not gonna do a whole lot of editing, so you're gonna get a lot of yap from me today. That's okay, I like yapping, and I hope you guys like listening to me yap too. So in honor of NaNoWriMo, starting next Friday, this Friday, yeah, I thought I should tell you guys all about all my projects, because a lot of them have been NaNoWriMo projects, and you can know what I'm doing for NaNoWriMo this year. And also just like there's a lot of projects I've never talked about on YouTube obviously, but also on TikTok, so maybe it'll be all new to you. Some of these, a lot of them are also behind the scenes, so none of you know except for me. I'm gonna be yapping about my in progress works, my whips, and then also my completed novels for a little timeline there, which I'll get into. I kind of hardcore started writing in 2020, so 4 years-ish is the span of these projects for the most part. And that's basically all I need to say to preface this. I am a little bit inspired by Anna New for this video. She likes to talk about her projects a lot, and part of me thinks nobody's gonna care about mine, but like, who cares? It's just for me anyway. This YouTube channel, it's a hobby and it's a passion project, and someday I hope to make it my job, but for now it's just for funsies. And I would love to talk to you guys about my books, so let's get right into it. I keep an ongoing whips tracker and completed tracker, which is something I would highly recommend to writers, especially people who tend to have a lot going on at once. So definitely do that. And then I don't know where to start. Should we start with whips or should we start with completed? I feel like we should start with completed. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do the completed projects because it'll lead me into some other interesting things that we're gonna talk about in the coming months. So the first completed project we are going to discuss is Partial Stars, which I actually have talked about on this YouTube channel, so we're not gonna go too far into it, but it is a mystery romance literary, I don't know if I'd go that far, but basically I was traditionally publishing it at the beginning of this year and I am no longer. I'll tell that story one day, I promise, but I am shelving it for now because I have bad memories attached to it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. Basically there's a protagonist named Farrah Green. She finds herself alone, stranded in the wilderness with very little memories. She remembers her name, her mother's name, and I think that's it. She doesn't remember how she got there. And basically it unfolds into a sort of murder mystery tale. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on YouTube, but she's found by a member of her search party who claims to be her boyfriend. His name is Ashton. And yeah, I started writing the book when I was 15 in fitness class in grade 10. So yeah, it was inspired by going to the cottage, my friend's cottage, being on the lake, and me picturing being stranded out there with a paddleboard and nothing else. Anyway, that's Partial Stars. I do love it with all my heart. It's very important to me. And it was not a NaNoWriMo novel. I wrote it over the span of like 2 years, randomly. These are also not in order, by the way. Moving on though, this one was close in timeline with Partial Stars. We have Saturn Sun. First, I'm gonna show, actually I'll show both fan arts that my friend Hisha made for me. Adore you, by the way. So, sorry I hit the mic. This is the one for Partial Stars for Vera. Obsessed. And then this is the one for Saturn Sun that she recently did. Every time I see one of these from her, I cry. and explode with joy because can you even imagine, like, I'm not a published author yet. Well, I have one thing out, but I haven't published these novels, and Hisha was a beta reader for both of those. Actually, no, Saturn Sun is on Wattpad to this day, so you can go read it if you're interested after I talk about it. But yeah, so grateful for that. I thought I'd plug her because she deserves love and support from me and all of you guys. Anyway, moving forward, we'll talk more about beta reading later, but Saturn Sun, basically it's about a girl named Saturn. Pretty cool, right? I like to name my characters weird things, if you can't tell from this list that I'm going to share with you. But basically she moves across the world to escape her troubled past. She goes to a new university, which is funny because when I was writing this I was not in university. I wonder if it's even accurate. But she meets this boy in a bookstore that his mother owns, and she doesn't have money to purchase the books, so she sits there and reads them every day. And I don't really remember much else. This was a NaNoWriMo book and it got me through a lot back in grade 12, so forever grateful for her. But basically they fall madly in love. It's a romance book, and it's an adult romance book, which I don't do anymore. But one time I was in a situationship and he read Saturn Sun. Can you believe it? Okay, we're not talking about that anymore. But anyway, it's a bit spicy, which I don't write explicitly anymore, but go read on Wattpad if you want. It's a lot, and I couldn't produce that stuff if I tried at this stage in my life. So let's move on. On that note, let's move on. Saturn Sun, adore you. She was my favorite protagonist I've ever wrote before I wrote A Girl Called Love, which comes later. Next we have Trapped in Freedom. This book a lot of you might not know about. I think it's still up on Wattpad. I hear my sister talking about me. Speaking of my sister, I wrote this book with my sister. We wrote it during COVID lockdown, so maybe it's like the first novel I ever finished. But we co-wrote it, which is weird because normally we can't do stuff like that and see it to the end, but it's been through a lot. It went into a novel publication contest at one point when we were like 14, and that was pretty cool. The person running the contest read the entire thing and she didn't read any of the other books. She gave us a lot of good feedback too. But anyway, it's about a really mundane world that these 5 characters are trapped in. They all have like their quirks and little romances, and there's a little girl as well. And basically they escape the mundane city in a truck delivering supplies from the good city that they're not actually supposed to know about, but they realize that there's an in-between. That's actually what the place is called, and they get trapped there because they think, oh, it's freedom. No, that's why it's called Trapped in Freedom, get it? But they have to like go through a bunch of obstacles and challenges that are designed to keep people out of this free city. There's basically an evil prime minister, and then that's pretty cool. They eventually make it. Spoiler alert, because I'm never going to publish that most likely, so there you go. Trapped in Freedom. Love her. She holds a special place in my heart. And then next we have, okay, we're going to get into some fan fictions. Brace yourself. We have I Told the Stars About You. I don't know how many words are in that project, but I know that it's a lot. Perhaps not like a dense fantasy novel. Definitely novel length though. Anyway, I wrote that when I was 15. I was 15 and I have a video about it, I think. I haven't watched it in a long time, so it might be weird, but it is about an original character who transfers to Hogwarts, falls in love with Draco Malfoy. That's basically the whole plot. But people really liked it. It went crazy on Wattpad. It's now down because I can't have that be a part of my digital footprint as much as it never really goes away. Sorry. But I do think it's really cool that it sort of like gained a lot of traction on Wattpad, because I don't know, it just kind of proves that people like my work. I don't know, even though it's a fanfic. But I have nothing against fanfics, by the way. I love them still. Just that one in specific, not my favorite thing I've ever written at this point, but I was really proud of it at the time. There's really not a plot from what I remember. Like, there is a plot, but it's not that special. I think they like, oh god, I don't even remember. I don't want to know, but I am going to be doing a series eventually of me reading that as like an audiobook sort of thing with my little mic and doing my reactions to it, so stay tuned for that. Let's move on. Next we have Through Our Silence, which is also a fanfic. Novel length. Longer, more recent. I think I was 17 when I wrote it. It's follows the canon plot, but with an original character of Half-Blood Prince. So like the wardrobe and all that jazz. It's also adult, so it's spicy. The only other thing I've written that's spicy, well, the only other novel that I've written that's out there, just so you know. But we'll see if I ever dive into that again. I'll let you know, okay? But yeah, that's basically all you need to know. It's like following the plot of the 6th book. She helps him, etc. Okay? Next, Deception. It's also a fanfic. This is the last one, I promise. And it's about a Beauxbaton girl who's friends with Fleur. She's bullied by the Slytherins. She gives Draco a love potion. It fails. That's the plot twist. And so basically he's in love with her the whole time. That's Deception, okay? No longer up on Wattpad. I will be reading it aloud to you at some point. Next we have Empress of the Night. This was a NaNoWriMo novel, and actually it was my first NaNoWriMo novel. The first time I ever wrote a novel in 1 month, basically. And it's not the longest. It's a supernatural, queer love story about vampires. And I think it's half decent. I was 16, I think, when I wrote it. And that's about it. It's about a queen who rules her kingdom during the day, and then the empress, she's the empress of the like under kingdom of vampires. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's not too bad though, and I'm proud that I was able to do NaNoWriMo with 60,000 words when I was 16. Pretty cool. Next, we're getting into the good stuff, okay? I was gonna say this is my most recent completed work, but it is not. We have something nameless. Obsessed with her. I'm looking for beta readers. If you're interested, comment down below. I'm currently revising it. You won't be beta reading until I finish revising it. But I can't reveal much about this book because there's an insane plot twist at the halfway point that basically is the plot of the novel. So I actually don't know how I'm gonna like promote this because you can't say much. But basically there's this fantasy world, okay, Canadian accent, fantasy world, ruled by a queen who is half dragon, and she basically comes to learn that there's this strange occurrence happening at the mountain in the middle of the sea between the two provinces. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. But it's a romantasy, fantasy, dragons in the real world type thing, and people really like it over on my TikTok. They're really into it, and so am I. I wrote that one this year. I wrote 100,000 words in just over a month, so I'm really proud of that. That's one of my greatest accomplishments in the writing world. But I also wrote a novella. That's a completed work of mine. A novella named Forenamed for that. It is about the two dragons from their perspective, and it gives insight on the past the future, and then also the present events of novel 1 leading into novel 2. So yeah, that's forenamed. Then we have I can't even talk about this book. I love it so much. Most people would probably guess that my favorite thing I've ever written is something nameless. It was until I wrote this book. It's called A Girl Called Love. I can't put into words how much I love it. Like, it is everything I've ever wanted in a book, and it doesn't even feel like I wrote it because it just feels like it's this book that I'm crazy about, and like I am the fandom for it. And I don't know if it's ever gonna see the light of day because I don't know if a single lick of the like scientific medical stuff in it is accurate enough, although I would love to fact check it and have it published someday. It is a romance mystery. It's about a girl called Love. She's basically a recently graduated girl who lives in an orphanage. It's actually called a home for girls. Her mother, her adoptive mother, runs the orphanage, and she's very happy, but she's kind of a weird girl. She's like obscure in the best way possible, in my opinion, but she doesn't have many friends. She's kind of a loner, and she gets hired one day by this family that is really famous called the Van Dorens, and they hire her to write a biography for them about their family, and specifically about the deceased grandfather, Atticus Van Doren, who was like a medical genius basically, and like created a bunch of inventions that like changed the whole world in this universe. But she basically learns that she's involved in some really screwed up stuff linked to the Van Dorens that I can't really say because it spoils it, and she's under like the employment of the grandson Callias. Don't even get me started on them. I can't do it. But it's like Grumpy X Sunshine. It's got some of my favorite characters I've ever written. It's like old money. I could talk about it all day. And yesterday was October 26th. And once you guys read this book, she basically has this mantra that's, my name is Love Hartley. I was born on October 26th and I'm not dying. She says it multiple times. You get Callias's point of view in the book and then Love's journal entries. So we see her write that quite often. Yesterday was her birthday. I didn't even celebrate. I feel so bad. But you also get to see her birthday in the book. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. And I can yak about it because yak? That's not what people say. I could yap about it. I could yap about it for the rest of my life. Instead, we're going to move on to my whips. Before we get into my whips, I wanted to say that on my TikTok, I post about all these projects a lot. Can the camera stop shaking? So if you're interested in the aesthetics, the quotes, the vibes, there's a lot of that over on my TikTok, so a self-promo there for you. But honestly, it's more just to give you guys further insight, because although I can yap about these books all day, I don't want to make this boring. So I'm trying to do it kind of concisely and failing. Anyway, the first whip that I have for you is the eventual left. I don't even think this can count because I haven't written it in well over a year, but it was something I was really inspired to do last March, not this March, last March. And it was a story about a really traumatized girl who ended up being without a home and living in the rafters above like a tunnel on the highway. And she goes through this journey where you see her past self's point of view and her current self trying to start a new life. It was very literary. There's also going to be a romance, a queer romance, and I don't think I'll ever revisit it, which is sad. I just don't have the passion for it, and I really need a lot of passion when it comes to completing projects and like investing my whole self into them. So a lot of these are kind of dead for now. Doesn't mean I'll never write them again, but that's the eventual left. And then we have Bluebird. That one I've kind of been thinking about lately. I haven't touched it in a while. It's a Hermione fic. Love her. This was the first Hermione fic I've ever written. All my other ones are original characters. It does pretty well on AO3, especially for being a whip. I kind of love it also. Like, it's what I always wanted in a Hermione fic, but I don't think the Hermione in it is like prominent enough, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna have to like add to that if I ever revisit that project. But it's got a lot of words on it. Like, I put a lot of time into that book. It's, if you're interested, a memory loss post-war fic where Draco and Hermione are married, but she slowly starts to remember things about her past, and she can't figure out why her memory is so like blocked, basically, and it unfolds from there. I can't say much else, and I also don't remember much else, so there you go. Next we have Here Lies Aurora, another one kind of like the eventual left that I've shelved for the foreseeable future. The main reason for that with this one is I wrote it during a time that is very not fond in my memory, and it was inspired by something that is not fond in my memory. It was also inspired by Fenna though, my friend Fenna. I love her, and it might push me to finish that book, but it's also written in first person point of view, or no, not first person. Jeez, I write all my books in first person. What's the word? Present tense. It's written in present tense because I was trying to challenge myself and like become a present tense girl. It's never gonna work. I hate doing present tense, and I'm not ever gonna do it again. If I ever go back to that book, I'm probably gonna change it to be past tense. But it's basically about a girl named Rory, and she has had something really bad happen to her. An accident, I think. So she doesn't have much of her memory. I like memory loss trope, if you can't tell. And she has moved to a different school that she'd always wanted to go to back when she went by Aurora, back when she had her memory and she had her old life. And she just doesn't really feel right about it. But she meets this guy, and he's actually from her past. And he sort of, they have to work together in class. He sort of helps her remember that they used to have a thing back in their other country. Anyway, there's also like this newspaper aspect, and like he is the alias writing the newspaper that she's obsessed with. And it's like a bunch of sad quotes about losing somebody. Anyway, he basically thinks she's dead because she's had a lot of like reconstructive surgeries and stuff. So she doesn't look the same, really. But he figures it out eventually. Anyway, that's Here Lies Aurora. Next we have The Dark Side of Destiny. Oh girl, I've been thinking about this one a lot lately. It was, here's where we're going to talk about NaNoWriMo again. It was my failed NaNoWriMo book from last November. This is how I feel about last November. That's how I feel about it. So, due to unforeseen, kind of foreseen circumstances, I did not win NaNoWriMo last year. I think I made it to like, let me pinpoint the exact moment where it went wrong. Probably day 9, day 10. I quit because I was devoting myself to other things. But I tried to do it with The Dark Side of Destiny, which I had already written like 10,000 words on, which is normally what I do for NaNoWriMo because starting a book is hard. But I love it. It's like a dark academia, academic rivals to lovers, mystery, witchy, magical realism novel. And the girl's name's Stella, I think, and she basically has this really strange sister named, I don't remember her name. I want to say Ellis, but it's not Ellis. Oh no. Okay, I need to know what her name is. Give me a sec. Oh, her name is Naomi. I feel like that doesn't really go, but fair enough. Anyway, there's a lot of strange occurrences going on at their school and people turning up unalived in very strange ways. And all the while, she started going to her sister's club meetings. Her sister is kind of a loner. She's very strange. Again, I love that though. And she's gathered this community of people who are interested in her witchy stuff. Can my cats please stop? Vidya, get down. Get down, please. She's gonna break something. But she's gathered this community of students who are interested in her magic, basically. And Stella starts to realize, like, oh my god, maybe her magic is not BS. Maybe she's really a witch. And it unravels from there. I feel like I've been saying that every single time and it makes me laugh, but they figure out some stuff about the, like, murders and stuff happens. Anyway, it's like 30k deep, 30k words, that is. So I might revisit it. I actually probably will revisit it someday because I very much love, especially the ending of that book. I can definitely see it being out someday. Next we have July 32nd. I'm going to talk about this one pretty briefly. It was last summer, I think I wrote this, and it's funny because it's about camp counselors, and I was a camp counselor this summer, not last summer, but I love summer camp, kind of, maybe. It's a bit skewed now that I worked at one, but I wrote it. It's just a romance, like two people that have just kind of a history, and they both end up working at a summer camp. I know now Wildfire's out. Back then, there was no summer camp books. No summer camp books. And basically this girl who's his little sister is lost, and the two of them volunteer to go out and find her. This is before it becomes like a big situation. Also, now I know how it works when a kid goes missing at a summer camp, and it is not a good time. Not a good time at all. Not that it ever would be when a kid goes missing, but like, wow, it's very thorough and very, very rough mentally and physically. But basically the two of them are very determined to go find her on their own. They fall in love. Moving on, we have Nameless Souls. This one I probably should have saved for last, but it's going to be my NaNoWriMo book for this year, which I just decided. Hi guys, this is Fiona editing this a few weeks later. I am not doing Nameless Souls for my NaNoWriMo novel. I'm doing Below, which I'll talk about eventually here. And I also haven't started NaNoWriMo, so I don't even know if I'm going to do it, but if I do, I'll vlog it for you. Anyway, on to this incredibly long video. Enjoy! It's the second book of the Nameless series. It is gonna be intense to write. I didn't want to talk about this one right now because I'm not prepared, but I can't say much about where it leaves off at the end of the first book, but this one has a ball in it. It has apocalypse stuff in it, which I've always wanted to write, and it has a lot of the romance, like the thick of the romance, and it also is sad, like very sad and emotional. So that's Nameless Souls. Next we have Project Ring. This was the one I had started after A Girl Called Love, I think, before I started my current project, but it doesn't have a title. I had a working title for a while. I kind of hate it now though, so I'm not sharing it with you. I don't even remember really what it was. Oh yeah, it's in the same world as Something Nameless, the same universe as Something Nameless, that is. My friend's texting me. I should probably check that. And so that part is really cool. It's sort of a prequel type thing, and I do think I will finish it someday. And I think it might be a standalone. But it's about a girl who finds a ring. A girl, she's kind of a creature actually. And she finds a ring, and it's like linked to this huge prophecy. Not like Lord of the Rings, don't worry. But basically, it's like the fated mate of the king who's been cursed, the prince who's been cursed to not age and to be miserable, basically. So they learn a whole lot of lore about their past and like how they came to be in this situation each. They hate each other, so it's enemies to lovers, but that's that's a very bad, awful description of Project Ring. Someday we'll get more into it, I promise. Moving on. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Project / below is the first book, is my current whip. I am 32 or 33,000 words deep in it, and honestly I feel like I should be further along at this point. That book kind of gives me a run for my money, but it's a dystopian, which I've never done until now, except for kind of with Trapped in Freedom a million years ago. But it's about a girl named June, and it's a society where people are dropped from the sky into this dystopian world, and they have no memory of, it's called above, they have no memory of their lives prior. Most people fall as teenagers or adults, but June fell as a 10-year-old. For a while, she believes that she's the only person to have ever fallen prematurely. She also has perfect aim, so she is recruited by the prime minister, who is evil, surprise, to be like an assassin. So she doesn't fit within one of like the sectors that people work in, typically to like advance the society. She is an assassin who kills people and gets information out of them forcefully for the prime about questioning the society, I suppose, like, and questioning the prime, questioning above and how they got in this situation. Basically, it's the people who aren't brainwashed and who have kind of broken free from like the ideas that the prime feeds them. But she ends up joining forces with a very unexpected ally. He is called the Warden, and his name is Lord. I love him. And they basically, it's a slow burn romance, okay? But they get to be close in like an enemy's way, so she keeps him at arm's length, but in the best way possible, because she's like so susceptible to his ways, and she really does have a lot of attraction to him, but she doesn't admit it. Anyway, the first book is single POV. The next book is going to be dual POV. I'm so excited to write what's inside of Lord's brain because he's such a cool human being and I love him. Also June, she's iconic. She's so slay. But there's so much that goes on in that. I could actually make an entire video about it. Like, she takes in one of her victims' children because she has nowhere else to go. It's so heart-wrenching, actually. I just wrote the most sad scene, and it's gonna be so good. They basically have a rebellion, by the way. Like, that's where this is headed. They're gonna rebel. They're gonna learn a lot about what's really going on. And did I mention that the Warden is also the Prime's son? Like, the evil prime minister. It's her adoptive son. So yeah, that's project / which you're not actually supposed to say out loud. You're supposed to use two hands and go like this. But that's a story for another day. Moving on. At long last, we have Quote the Living, which is my working title for this whip that is in the brainstorm phases. It's not written at all. Will I ever write it? Questionable. It's about this girl. She was going to be named June, but then I used June in this book. And she's convinced that she is a deceased girl who died in a fire, who was very famous. Her family was very famous. This main character is convinced that she is her. And she's in this very religious, I'm gonna call it orphanage facility, I guess. And it's basically very like screwed up. But she learns eventually what the truth is, and there's gonna be a romance in it, but that one is like the bones. It's in my notes app. That's about it. So don't get too excited. But number 10, we have my short story collection. Technically, I could put my poetry collections on here too, but that's not really a novel. Neither is a short story collection, but it will have a lot of words to it, if that makes sense. I've been working on this for a while. Not really. I've been working on short stories for years, but I've been working on the collection as of recent. I want to do a horror collection really badly. I don't think I have enough ideas for an entire horror collection, but the ideas I do have, I'm confident in. For my short fiction, I'm gonna indie publishing. I'm going to use indie publishing and self-publishing to produce my short fiction. Does that make sense? So I want to publish another poetry book. It's going to be called Loose Ends, I think. We'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. And then the short story collection, to be named, to be talked about at a later date, because I'm going to vlog both of those processes, not only for myself, but also to show you guys how I self-publish, because I've done it once before with The Certainty of Stars, which is not on these lists because it's a very short prose collection. I used to call it poetry. It's not poetry. It's most of it is not poetry. And with my next one, Loose Ends, it's going to be a prose collection and mostly just my random thoughts from my notes app all put together because I have a lot of it. And it's mostly going to be about heartbreak. So brace yourself. That was like two ideas in one, two whips in one for you. But I have a lot of short story ideas that I have to save for class too, because I have to write a lot of short stories for school in my program. But that doesn't mean I can't publish them also. So you're welcome. Anyway, that's like one of my goals at this point, is to publish a short story collection, even though I had a burning hatred for short stories for a very long time. Being an English major, I have to read them non-stop, but I love them now because it's very satisfying to get a story out there that's short. Anyway, let's talk about the last project on this list. I'm probably forgetting one or two, but this whip struggle has been ongoing for a very long time, like years, so I'm confident that I have everything. Okay, this one again is like quote the living, very bones brainstorm idea Pinterest board type thing. Like, it's not a fleshed out plot, it's not a story, it does not have anything written for it yet, although I really want to write chapter 1. It's about a society where things have hit the fan, if that makes sense. And there is this family that claims to have magic, and they restore the world of its like climate, because climate change is what kind of kills it, and also the fall of the government and people just not wanting to comply anymore, mostly because of the climate crisis. But anyway, this family restores the world of its order, essentially, and their goal is to sort of go back in time and start over before all this stuff happened that ruined our world. And therefore they become like the king and the queen, more historical, if that makes sense. They have a son who they want to marry off, have more children and stuff, you know what I mean? So he is allowed to choose who his bride will be, which is actually not disclosed in the beginning, so you're welcome for that spoiler. But there's this girl who's the main character, to be named. She has a very tragic past childhood, which I typically write, as you can see, but she has a lot going on and she is so excited because she's like, oh my god, I can be a princess. She gets to the castle, it's not what it was cracked up to be, and there's some really screwed up shit going on. I can't say that word on YouTube, I'm sorry, but there's some really bad things happening that she learns on the inside, and they basically have to fix it. And it's an arranged marriage, which I've never written but always wanted to write. Not like an arranged marriage, but like a marriage of convenience, I guess. Arranged marriage works, but they do fall in love. Anyway, that's that one. I'm calling it Project Princess because I can't think of a better name at the time. But again, it's a Pinterest board and a notes app. Brainstorm list. That's about it for now. There we have it, folks. Ew, I hate when people say folks. Oh my god. There we have it, my friends. Now I sound like I'm talking to my campers, but okay. that was me talking about all my projects. I think we talked about 21 projects, unless I mentioned like a couple other ones like the poetry and all that jazz. But that was like the majority. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. My brain has a hard time with it myself, but also they're all crammed in here. Imagine how that feels. No, don't. It's not good. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about all these projects. Let me know your favorites, which ones you're interested in hearing more about, interested in reading. Let me know if you want to be a beta reader for something nameless, and possibly further in the nameless series as well if you're interested. I hope to traditionally publish it. It might not happen. I'm not worried about that right now. Right now I'm worried about getting it to its best and also getting people reading it, because I think I want to be not the only person in the world who has read that book. Except for my parents. Both my parents have read it. They've never read any of my other work, but they both read that one, which is slightly horrifying. Anyway, that was the video. I'm gonna give a couple more pieces of information. So if you're not interested, click off. I love you. Thank you for watching. The first is that I have a writing Instagram, as seen on the screen. I post updates live on my stories of these whips that I've been talking about, these completed projects that I've been talking about. I post a lot of my prose in my notes app. So if you're interested in the complexities of my brain, there's a column for that. And then I post the aesthetics of all these projects as well, or most of these projects. So if you want more information about all that, it's kind of concise on that Instagram. I also have a regular Instagram where I often talk about writing, but not fully, because it's like my personal page where I just kind of spam. And then I also have a TikTok where, again, I post writing tips often, writing tip of the day series. And then I also post about all my projects all the time. So check it out. I'm not trying to self-plug, by the way, but like it does come across as that. I just kind of want to like help you guys learn more about my stuff, okay? If you're curious, if you're interested, if you are into that. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for further videos. By the way, I've filmed several in the time since I last posted. None of them have made it up because I wasn't happy with them. So I have been trying, I promise. But I haven't been succeeding in getting videos up for you guys. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try and do better. But again, I'm only gonna do videos for you guys that I think you're gonna like and that I like. So there you go. That was that. That was my yapping sesh. Hope you enjoyed. And I love you. Thank you for watching from the bottom of my heart. Love you.